Hey Gurus, John Skolton here to give you a quick rundown on a new tool for Web Gateway administrators. It's called the Three-Headed Dog, or THD for short. It's meant to help make your life easier for setting up Kerberos Authentication. So let's get into it. Alright, so here it is, the McAfee Three-Headed Dog. So let's get started. We'll start by clicking the Let's Configure Kerberos button. This will take us to the Creation tab. The Creation tab is meant for the initial setup of Kerberos. It helps us fill in the blanks for the AD account, which will be created by your Active Directory administrators. The form will validate each of the fields against Active Directory, and it will also check DNS in case any records are missing for your SPNs. Form validation is important because with Kerberos, if there's a duplicate SPN, it could break something in production. So it's important to take note of any warnings and adjust as needed. Here we can see that the common name, the SPN, the domain, the account creation path, and SAM account name are all validated. I'll add my own password here. McAfee 123. If I can type it right. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in some extra SPNs here. So I'm going to add one for my load balancer. So corp.tangomark.com. I'm going to add in one for my second web gateway, just in case anybody decides to put their proxy settings to use it. All right. And we can see that they're all validated, but I don't have any DNS entries for those two names. The Generate Syntax button will always present you with the necessary commands based on the form, regardless of the validation results. So even if there's a failure here, it's still going to present you with the syntax. The goal of the tool is to provide guidance, not hindrance. So I'm going to generate that syntax. This will spit out all the commands you need to create the Kerberos account in Active Directory, and the necessary commands to modify it to add any extra SPNs. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to take it over to Active Directory. In your scenario, you might give it to your Active Directory administrator for them to run. So I'm going to pop over to my domain controller here, and then I'm going to run them individually. So the first command that we're going to use here, it will actually create the account in Active Directory. So we're creating a user and setting all the proper flags and where it's created. All right, so that user is created. Then we're going to generate the key tab for the first time. So this will put a file onto the desktop of the Active Directory administrator. Now we're going to modify the AES and encryption flags on the account. So it's going to enable AES 128 and AES 256. So that's enabled. And now we have to run KTPass again. This is required if you modify AES encryption methods on the account. Not sure why, but Windows forces you to. The account just won't work if you don't. All right. Then I'm going to check for duplicates for the first SPN that we have here. This is more of a safety command. In the form when we were using the three-headed dog, it did validate that the SPN did not exist. However, we want to be sure of it before the AD admin runs it. So this will run this, and it's checking for the SOCKS SPN. So remote command mwg.corp.tangomark.com, and it hasn't found it. So now we can proceed to go ahead and add it. So I'm going to add that one. So it added successfully, and I know that none of these have any duplicates, so I'm just going to go ahead and add them in without checking to see if they're duplicates. All right, add the SOCKS alias, add the second HTTP proxy alias, and add the second SOCKS alias. All right, and the last two commands here, this set SPN-X will check for any duplicates in the entire tree. So if we ran all these and we just want to make sure that there's no duplicate SPNs whatsoever, we can run that. There's none in here. So, and then this ldiff command, what that does is this provides you with output to prove that the AD admin ran the commands in the fashion that you asked. So this will create a file on the desktop and will output all the information about the account that was created. So all of this is in the notes that are generated in the syntax generator. So the AD admin should have the key tab, and they should have the text file containing the account information. So I'm going to copy this. Your AD admin will probably email you this back or pass it to you in some secure way. All right, so I'm going to close out of the syntax on my workstation and just dropping those files back on. But if we open this up, we'll see all the information about that account, the name, the username, the SPNs, the key version, and the encryption types. And now if we go over to the maintenance, so you've had an account for a while, or you set it up and you forgot it, right? Or a year later you're coming back to review it because you need to change something about the account, or you need to add an SPN. So what you can do is the description of the account that was created contains the words created by a McAfee Kerberos tool. So if we search for that, we're going to see the account that we just had our Active Directory admin create. So that's svc mwg Kerberos. So we can see all the details about it, the same information that we saw in the text file. So we can just review it, and sometimes this is useful. So maybe you want to add a new SPN like mwg3.corp.tangomark.com. You can do that here. It's going to generate the syntax. So we pass that again back to the Active Directory administrator, have them run that, and you've added your SPN. If you want to remove an SPN, you can do the same thing. You do that and click the Remove SPN button, and it gives you the syntax you need to delete the SPN if you're doing some sort of cleanup. We can also output these results to a text file. So if you're working with McAfee support or anybody else, you can spit it out to a file. All right, so that's the maintenance part of this. Usually those are really the only maintenance that you'd really need to do, is review the information, remove or add SPNs, and maybe export some information for somebody else to review. Next, I'll show you the key tab viewer. So I'm just going to browse for the key tab that we created, and it's going to show us everything about the key tab actually. This uses a built-in Java utility called klist. So only if you have Java on your machine will these options be available. So in the key tab output, we can see the SPN that's there, the version number, the key type, the actual key, and when the key tab was created. In this case, it's epoch time because this wasn't created by hand; it was created by Active Directory, so it always defaults to that for some reason. KTUtil is a little bit more for advanced users trying to manipulate their key tab file. So if you want to add SPNs into the key tab versus the user, so what I showed you on the maintenance was how you can add SPNs against the user account. What this shows you how to do is create or manipulate or create a new key tab containing extra entries. This is a little bit more advanced, but the idea is that it just takes the copy and paste work out of the KTUtil commands. It's usually a long process. You gotta, bust open Notepad++ and then copy and paste a bunch of things. So this just makes it easier. So in this case, I'll just do, let's create a new one. We'll call it socks.corp.tangomark.com. All right, so we do that, we add it, and what it does is it just copy and paste based on the selected entry in the key tab down below. So we can see here's it's got the same keys as it does up above. All right, and then next here we have the groups export. You could read more about this in the community article, but the idea is that Kerberos tickets only contain IDs, like you see in the little picture here. So we need to translate those into names. So what this does is it allows you to create a file or upload a list to a web gateway where we can map the IDs to names. So I've got a little sample block page here. So with if I was only using Kerberos and there was no directory connection available, so let's say this is a cloud web gateway that's in AWS, or it's in some DMZ with no connection to your LDAP or or to a domain controller using NTLM. Then all that we would have available to us is the SIDs, or the ID, group IDs from the ticket. But with the groups export feature, we can basically create a mapping file where it just says this is the ID and this is the human readable string or group name that goes with it. So then you can click upload, and then it will upload that file to your web gateway that you've configured in the settings. So what we've got here is I have a special rule set that's also attached to the community article where it does all this for you. So this is just a nice representation of the groups that I'm a part of and we're actually interested in. Because there's a bunch of other groups in here that don't really matter, that we're not using for filtering purposes. So, all right. And then under the settings, this is where you can actually target a different domain controller. So if I wanted to target, let's say tme.corp.mcafee.com, then I could target a new domain and then type in different credentials for that domain. So when we do that, this will actually update the creation syntax. So this is going to be useful if you're an MSP and you're a big organization with multiple domains and you need to create the key tab for multiple domains. So if we go back over to the creation tab, we can see that all of the hints that we've given you are all updated to reflect the new domain. And if we go in there, I've already created an account using these SPNs, so they're not going to validate properly. But that's the tool. There's also a couple options in here. You can configure the REST API for the groups export. So if you want to upload the list directly from here, you can do that. If for some reason you type in some bad output into the server, the custom LDAP server settings, it will actually disable directory lookups and validation. So if I go back over to the creation tab, it's going to disable validation because this is a obviously bad domain. So again, use this tool for guidance. It's not meant to hinder anything. I also didn't want the tool to automatically generate the key tab. Playing with the domain and doing things like that is sometimes a little scary. So by giving this, generating the syntax, it kind of builds trust in the tool, so that maybe down the road we'll automatically generate the key tab. But for now, it's just a syntax generator for key tabs, and also trying to help you with all things surrounding Kerberos. So hope you enjoyed that. Sorry if that was a little long, but yeah, see you out there.